Yo, Kid-Based Guy here. What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel, and today I want to talk about speaker tone and how important or unimportant it may be in your system depending on your room, the speakers that you're using, and the type of music listening that you're going to be doing. So I'm going to break down today if you need speaker tone, and if you do, how do you achieve the correct amount of speaker tone, and I'll even tell you if you need tone at all. But first we have to talk about what speaker tone is. So you purchased your speakers and now you have your front stage set up. So your left and your right speaker. When you take your new speaker, whether that's a tower speaker from like mine, like Canton, or maybe a bookshelf speaker, when you want to tone your speakers, you actually turn your speaker to fire toward your listening position, creating a triangle. The apex or the top of the triangle is your seating position, and then the bottom of that triangle is where the speakers are. So toeing in your speakers is turning your speakers to direct all of the speakers in the cabinet towards where you're going to be sitting. And this takes all the sound and directs it more towards your listening position. It focuses all of the sound that way. So right now I have an example of my Canton Vento A96.2. I have toed it in to completely direct all of these drivers to fire toward my listening position. Now the opposite of toeing in is toeing out, where I can have them firing straight across the room parallel to the back wall, not facing my listening position. So we're going to talk about the benefits of having your speakers facing forward versus having your speakers toed in, and which one may be right for you. Now, toeing in your speakers, or knowing if they should be toed in, is a very difficult process, but it's definitely worth experimenting with because it could completely change the way that your system sounds right now just by angling them or toeing them out just a little bit. The first thing you want to get correct before you even try toeing in is making sure that your speakers are spaced correctly, meaning how far apart is the left speaker from the right speaker. You usually, a good rule of thumb is to make sure that your left and right speaker are at least 6 feet apart to give yourself the best chance of having a broad, open stereo image. So make sure your speakers, your left and your right front speakers, are at least 6 feet apart. Now, you don't want to spread them too wide. Another good rule of thumb is sit down in your listening position centered between the left and the right speakers. If you look dead in the middle, you should still be able to see in your peripherals your left speaker and your right speaker. If you can't see your speakers in your peripherals looking straight between the two speakers, it's too wide. So, for example, if I sit down in my listening position and I'm facing forward, and my left and my right speaker are of course to my left and to my right, I should still be able to see both left and my right speaker through my peripheral vision. If I can't, then I need to bring my speakers in until I can see both. And that should give you a pretty wide stage, so when you're watching movies and you're listening to music, you have a big wall of sound that doesn't sound like they're coming from two speakers. It sounds like the whole wall is a performance. So make sure you get your distances set correctly as far as how far apart is your sound stage. Now, once you're correctly positioned, now's the time to go in and try some toe in. The first thing you want to do is just put your speakers straight across, not facing the listening position, not toed in, and listen to several different songs. Music's probably an easier indication of toe in than a movie. So put some songs on that you are pretty familiar with. If you have a speaker that's notoriously bright, it's really harsh, sounds really, it's fatiguing almost. Having your speakers towed away from your listening position can help with that. If you have a speaker that's way too bright and you toe it in, you're directing all of that sound towards your listening position, to your ears, and it may be fatiguing over time. It may not sound that good. So if you have a speaker that's like that, try towing it out. Try making it more straight, not so directed to your system or to your listening position, so that your ears aren't being thrown all these frequencies that's fatiguing you over time. Now let's say you are pointing your speaker straight across, but now you're missing a little bit of stereo imaging. Now you're missing a little bit of sparkle, a little bit of high register. You can slowly start to turn your speakers in until you have what you're looking for, in a sense, until you restore some of that higher register. Usually the tweeter is the most indicative on toe in because it's the most directional speaker out of all of them in the speaker set. Out of all these drivers on my speaker, the tweeter is the most directional. So this will help you decide whether toe in is necessary or not and how much toe in is necessary. For me, I've always toed in my speakers, but after playing around with it, I realized that I had it toed in too much. The sound was too focused. Now, if I kind of mostly keep it straight with a little bit of angle, now I've really opened my sound stage and it sounds even more like a giant wall of sound than it did before I had it toed out just a little bit. So that same experiment can happen in your room right now, even in 2-channel listening, a 5-channel home theater, 7, whatever you have. Just turning this speaker just a tad bit can make a huge difference in how your system's performing, especially if you have a system that's either lacking some high end or has too much. Changing its position can drastically change the color of your sound. So here's the fun part. The amount of angle that you toed in your left speaker, you need to do the same thing for the right speaker. Make sure you're toeing these in equally or you're gonna throw off the balance of sound. If you have this speaker straight and the other speaker slightly toed in, then you're probably gonna hear just a little bit more of the left speaker than the right, and that's gonna throw off your balance. If you have this right speaker toed in way more than the left speaker, you're gonna also throw off your balance. You're probably still gonna hear more of one speaker than another. So make sure that you have them angled just similar to the other side. Make sure it's a perfect line of symmetry on both sides. So when you're sitting in your listening position, you're getting a cohesive stereo image and not one speaker is favored over the other. Now you may be somebody who realizes that they don't need toe in, and it's very specific to the music you're going to listen to, the type of speakers that you're using in the room itself. You may not benefit from speaker toe in. There's not a wrong or right way necessarily to go about it. You may not need toe in. You may have been toeing in your speakers your entire life, and it may have been wrong the whole time. So it's worth the experiment to play with different toe in. Maybe you have too much toe in. Maybe you need a little bit more. Maybe you need none at all. But it's worth the experiment, especially for the type of music that you're primarily going to listen to, as well as the speakers that you have. Again, you may have a really bright speaker, so toeing it towards your listening position may not be ideal for the type of speaker you have. Maybe vice versa. You have a speaker that's a little bit warm sounding. Maybe if you want to restore some of that upper register, toe the speakers in a little bit more so you direct that tweeter towards your listening space and you start to restore some of that missing high end that you once thought was missing. So play around with toe in, both speakers, make sure they're wide enough apart from each other that you have a nice stereo image, and you'll find just a little angle change will drastically change your system. So if you haven't experimented with that just yet, take the time to do that right now. All right, guys, so that's gonna do it for this video, the toe-in rule. Hopefully I told you guys something that you didn't know already so that you can incorporate that new rule into your system. For me, I've honestly haven't done a lot of playing with the toe-in with these speakers. I had the Polk Audio LSIM 707s before this, and I had them toed in and I loved it, and they needed to be toed in for me to experiment what I was really looking for. But these Cantons, I just stuck them in the same spot that I had my LSIMs. I never really played with any kind of angling. So I'm gonna do that with these and see what I discover. I'm pretty curious to see what would happen if I kicked them out a little bit wider and angled them outwards. What kind of experience would I have now? So I'm gonna play around with that in my home theater, and hopefully you guys take the time to do the same thing in yours, because you may have just improved your sound and you didn't even spend $1. So anyway, guys, leave me a comment down below. Let me know, are your speakers toed in or not, and why? Why did you choose to toe it in, or why did you choose not to? Leave me that comment down below. Hit the like button and subscribe if you are not already. We will see you tomorrow. K-Pace Guy out.